Hello, Showdown Nation. This is your guru, Colby Talifus, and today we're going to be talking about drafting and drafting for leagues. A lot of you guys have been checking out the blog, MLB Showdown Cards.blogspot.com, and you guys have noticed that the charts are almost done. A lot of you guys are preparing for leagues right now, and that means you guys are going to be drafting with all of your friends. So I just wanted to give you 10 questions that I ask myself before every draft that I have, just to make sure that I'm going to have a good time. I'm going to start at the top. The most important question, the thing I filter everything through when I am trying to prepare myself for a draft, and that is, what do I want to accomplish? There are three things that people tend to want to do. The first one is very obvious. People want to win. If you are a person who is a sore sport and you want to win more than half of your games, preferably you want to win the league, you want to win the entire the tournament or whatever, you need to win, you want the bragging rights, then you need to focus on that. You cannot focus on the names of your players. You cannot focus on any sort of specific statistic. You are purely going to be looking to get a strategy that is worth winning, and that means you need to filter everything through that. If you are a homer and you just want to get all of your favorite players, and that's more important to you, you want to win a little bit, but you want to do it with your homers, then just know that you are not going to necessarily win as much, or you've put yourself at a disadvantage. That's fine, but you're going to enjoy yourself because you have your hometown guys. I am a stat loader. I like to pick a single stat, and that is every time it has always been home runs. I don't mind losing a game if I won the home run battle. The only score that I care about in Showdown is who hit the most home runs. If I hit the most home runs in a game, I'm happy. I've lost plenty of games, 8-4, with 4 solo homers, and walked away very excited. I can do that. So that's the first question I filter through when I'm going to draft. The second one, we're starting to talk about, okay, how is this league actually structured? Not what do I care about, what's the league structured like? The first one, is this a capped league? Do I have to worry about a salary cap? Or are we just going to sit and draft all-star teams? What are the parameters as far as points? If it is capped, then obviously you have to pay attention to points. If not, then you just delete the point column off of your spreadsheets and just make sure you're getting the best possible players available. Easy enough, but some people don't think about it that way and they forget, and you need to remember it. That's important. The second one is, are we using strategy cards? We've talked about various types of strategy cards. We have our deck draw style, which was the original style. We also have what we call the stud style, where you have a certain amount of strategy cards in your hand, but you do not draw. And there is pure, where you can steal and walk and bunt, but that's all you can do with no strategy cards. These are all things you need to discuss beforehand. These are going to make certain players more valuable and less valuable. Speed players are more valuable in a pure system where you can steal unlimitedly. They are less valuable in a deck draw style, or even in a stud style, where you have a limited amount of steals at your disposal, and those steals come at the expense of other strategies. So it is something to be aware of and something to look at the field. The next one is, are we playing by AL or NL rules? If you're playing by AL rules, that means you will have a DH. That is 9 hitters, 4 starters. That's 13 players of your 20. That means that you will have 7 possible bench players and bullpen players. In this situation, you are kind of stuck in that you do not need a pinch hitter because you aren't going to be hitting for your pitcher, unless you have a severe punt, in which case you need a pinch hitter who can either play the position of your predicted punts, or a pinch hitter and a pinch runner / utility player who can play your punt positions. Also, pinch running is still going to be a factor. Remember, you are only going to have 7 possible options here, so the question is, what are you going to do with that lack of an extra guy? In an NL setting, you have that extra guy, but you're often going to be pinch hitting. You're probably going to pinch hit twice, if not 3 times a game. If you pinch hit 3 times a game, you can only carry 5 relievers. It's that catch-22. The more relievers you have, the more times you're going to switch relievers, but the less amount of pinch hitters you will be allowed to have. You need to figure out what you want to do with that, figure out how you're going to attack it. I always carried a high amount of relievers and usually 1 pinch hitter, and that was just what I did, and there were a lot of times where I was batting with a pitcher. That was a disadvantage I put myself under, but that was just how I chose to do it. So, also, the next question, so this is the 5th part here, is how many cards are we going to be legally allowed to draft? What is the block? For those of you who've gotten sets from me, That would be a 600 card block, unless you were adding in additional sets. So if you're doing a 600 year or a year, it'll be a 600 card block, and they'll be broken up on the sheets that we've sent you. If you're using your own 2000, 2001s, then you're going to want to compile those and know exactly how many of each player position, know how many cards are legally out there at each position, so you can figure out needs and when you're going to be running low at the bottom of the barrel. So the next one is, what are the strengths of that class? The older cards tend to be more power heavy. The newer cards do a little bit better with speed, because we do have players with speed above 20, which the originals did not. That's a very big strength. But really, you need to look at all the class as a whole and figure out, what is the strength? Do I want to get the peak of that strength, or do I want to ride into the middle and get areas of, get position scarcity? These are all things to be asking yourself and looking at the league as a whole. The next question is, how many guys are in the league? If you have a small league, then area position scarcity is not going to be that big of a deal. If you are in a larger league, 8, 10, 12 players, now all of a sudden you could really be ended up playing a bum somewhere that you don't want to, because you didn't figure things out. It's very important that you figure out how many guys are in your league. I know this sometimes can fluctuate. You think guys are going to be there and they're not. That's very frustrating. I can't control your friends, but you can control how many guys are in your league. You guys make sure that you guys are figuring out how many guys and comparing that to your list and figuring out your wants and your needs that way. The next one is, how many new players are there? This doesn't seem like it would be that important, but it really is. New players have tendencies. Remember when you were a new player, things that you used to do, really trying to valuing control extra high and not realizing how valuable lower control pitchers with big outs could be, or not realizing how important it is to have some potent charts as opposed to just purely on base. New players don't always recognize the difference between different kinds of outs or the importance of fielding. Remember that these are little advantages that you have that they do not, so you will value certain players higher. Don't necessarily feel the need to educate them right away. The first year, feel free to give them some help, but take some of the best players for yourself. That way they realize that you are better than they are, that you did put the time and effort in, and that they should listen to you. A lot of people won't listen to you until you've really just kind of shoved it down their throat a couple times. I think you should do that. So that's why you should know how many new players there are. Also, how many mock drafts have you done? I recommend you do at least one mock draft for every player in the league. And that means you're making a team, roughly guesstimating who will be available. And you should pick a team with different players at every position for at least every team in the league. That way, every player playing with you. That way, you make a list of, okay, this is, if you're in a 6-man league, 6 first basemen I can live with. This is, 6 second basemen I can live with. 12 corner outfielders I can live with. You want to make a list at least that long. That way people aren't taking your position players from you. And then the last one you want to know is, do we have free agency? If I get caught in a mistake, how do I fix this mistake? Can I do it through free agency? Or if there is no free agency, I really have to do my due diligence here. What happens sometimes, people have extra points because they didn't budget properly, or they just end up putting something together that does not make sense. I recommend that if you have free agency, you don't have to do as much preparation, but obviously we do a lot of preparation around here. If you do not have free agency, something that I definitely recommend is that you leave a starting player for your last pick in a capped league. This is often a mistake players use, is they assume that there's going to be a 2 or a 4-point bench player left for them. They end up going over the cap. What you want to do is save 2, 3, 400 points, whatever it starts to work out towards, and draft a very high, either a starting pitcher or relief pitcher, a first baseman or a corner outfielder last, something that is going to have a wide range of points, where you're going to have a lot of options, where you're not going to necessarily lose any points due to that. Do not try to sneak in a cheap bench player, because they may all be gone, or a cheap reliever, they may also all be gone. We are going to start to highlight a couple drafts out there. Some people have sent us their draft sheets, and we're going to do some draft specials out there. If you guys have drafted or had a league, please send your stuff to us. You can send it to our email at redsoxman at gmail.com, and we would love to highlight your stuff. Thank you guys, and I hope you guys are enjoying our blog.